So, Jason, one of the things I love about technology is lets you experience things that you may not get to experience without the technology. So, I have two examples for you, if you don't mind me sharing real fast. So, a bunch of years ago, I won't tell you how long because it'll make me seem old. We went on a high adventure camp for scouts. I took Dustin and our scout troop, and we went and climbed a 14,000-foot mountain.
Okay.
And we did what's called a sunrise summit. So you hike up part of the way and then you camp and then you go clear up to the summit after that. And so we all voted to do a sunrise summit, which meant we left that middle camp at 1:30 in the morning so that we
Mhm.
could be on the summit as the sun was coming up.
Right.
So I'm on top of this 14,000-foot mountain in Colorado. It's just this amazing, amazing view. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can FaceTime my wife from up
Yeah.
here because she'll never get to experience this. So I did it, FaceTimed her. It was super early in the morning for her, but she still answered. I had perfect bars. I've never had cell phone signal as good as I had up on top of that mountain. So,
Right.
but she got to see that sunrise, the views that we got to see real time, right? With her own eyes, not just a picture. So without FaceTime, she would have never gotten that experience with the rest of us, right? So
Y
super, super cool. Today, Dustin sends me a text and says, "Are you busy right now? Can I call you for 2 minutes?" And I'm like, okay. And usually that's not a good thing when they want to
Right.
call out of the blue on something like that.
Right.
But he's in New York. He just played Carnegie Hall yesterday, which was super, super cool for him.
Yeah.
And he says, "Look," and he shows me new Yankee Stadium. And then he pans around and he says, "I'm standing at about the spot where home plate was in old Yankee Stadium, which is now a community park."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, cool. I don't know if I'll ever go back to New York. I don't know if I'll ever get into Yankee Stadium. I'm a huge Yankees fan. I know you're a Stros fan, but we
Yeah.
all have our thing. But so cool, right? To be able to
Yes.
experience that. And he's the Yankees fan. I'm a Yankees fan. So the two of us, we actually watched the Yankees play in Houston. So yeah, super cool thing that you wouldn't be able to do without technology.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like you, that's one of the wonderful things about it. It allows us to share moments and places with people who can't make it there, no, or can't be there for whatever reason. And yeah, I'm with you. It's something more than just seeing a picture, right? Because you can go online and Google a good HD or 4K picture and see it, but FaceTime and being able to just video chat in general, people along on those journeys with us that yeah, they wouldn't normally be able to see it. So yeah, and two really cool stories.
All right, well, let's get started. Welcome to Two Grandpas Talking Tech. I'm your host, Grandpa Greg.
And I'm your host, Jay Benjamin. Thanks for joining us today.
Welcome, everyone, to this second session of recording for our introductory series, our launch series, whatever you want to call it. Last week, we recorded iPhone, Mac, and our favorite, iPad.
Yeah.
So if you haven't subscribed or seen those episodes, go ahead and check those out on our channel or on the podcast feed and make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications button so you can get alerted of those. They were pretty fun. Actually, they were fairly short recordings, all things considered, Jason, when you and I get together and talk about technology, right?
They were. And it's strange because our favorite device, the iPad, was the shortest episode, right? You would think we would have tons and tons and tons of things to say about it, but I think we just got right to the point. It's great. We both love it. And yeah, it turned out to be the shortest conversation that we had. So,
Well, we're going to dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about Apple Watch, and hopefully, we'll get AirPods in on this segment too. We'll see how it goes. I think between
yeah,
the two of those, I don't think they're super long. So we'll combine these two segments at least. And then we have one more segment to record. We don't know if it'll be today. Our podcast recording platform's been having some issues. So we're a little bit leery about how this is going to all turn out today. So, but the
yeah,
last one we want to do is HomePod, services, CarPlay, kind of the miscellaneous stuff that goes along with Apple. So again,
right.
today, Apple Watch, AirPods, I would say we both have some of each of these, but somebody has yet to go buy their new Apple Watch.
Right, right.
So, we'll see how that conversation goes. I won't point names at iPad grandpa over there that hasn't got an Apple Watch right now, but you know.
Yeah, yeah,
So what we'll do again, like we've done in our other episodes, we'll give you a rundown of the current lineup, which actually this is the simplest of the bunch. We'll give you a rundown of the current lineup, talk about how we feel about the overall state of the lineup, talk about any one device that stands out for us, what should be the default purchase for the other devices in the lineup that aren't the default. When would you consider getting those? Talk about some of buying advice and then what we're looking forward to this year. So we'll do that for Apple Watch and AirPods and see how it goes. Jason, does that sound like a show for today?
yeah, yeah. And I think it's going to be a fun conversation because although we ran and rave about the iPad, we both love Apple Watch. It's going
Yep.
to be good conversation.
All right. So, Jason, do you want to give us a rundown of the current lineup for the Apple Watch?
Yeah, and it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. And like we said, about the Mac, it's something for everyone, right? So right out of the gate, the budget, and I'm not even going to say a budget, right? Because it is still feature packed. It is still a good watch, but the Apple Watch SE3 is the quote unquote entry level Apple Watch. It is full featured. It is a good Apple Watch. Battery life may not be as great as some of the other ones, but it is still a really great watch. Next is the current series of Apple Watch, and that's the Series 11. And it comes in, of course, the base model of that of Series 11, and then you have a a version or a Nike Plus version. Is it Nike or Nike Plus? And the Hermes version, or if I'm pronouncing it right, it's Hermes. If I can put my accent on it, but the Hermes is the way overpriced luxury alternative. If you really want to church up your Apple Watch a bit, the Hermes version, but the Nike Plus always comes with some nice and flashy bands. You get the extra what is it, the watch faces and things like that. So Nike Plus is a good version too, but Series 11 is the current version, and then we have the Ultra. And I think, Greg, you and I both said on multiple occasions that this is what the Apple Watch should have always been. Now we have to wait for technology to catch up and battery life to catch up and things like that. But the Apple Watch Ultra is the premium version of the Apple Watch, right? It's more rugged, thicker casing on it. The glass is thicker. The screen is bigger. The battery life is longer. It is definitely a premium version. Also has quite a few features, basically like the iPhone, the iPhone Pro or the iPad Pro, right? It's the more feature packed version of the Apple Watch. So, but yeah, and there you have it. You have those three. Of course, you can always get your hands on some of the older ones. We don't recommend buying anything that's two or three generations older, especially if you're paying, close to retail. But yeah, there you have it. You have those three versions now.
Here's my take on that lineup. So really there's three. I'm not going to count the Nike and Hermes because yeah, you may get a watch face or something like that and bands, which you can actually go out and buy separately
Right.
from getting
Separately.
those versions. But if you're going to buy a high end band, you want to buy it when you buy the watch because you actually get a little bit of a discount. It's a little bit cheaper when you consider watch price plus the band at the time of purchase, usually. Now they've changed some of that up, so who knows? But
Yeah.
I just don't look at the Hermes and the Nike stuff. And although the Nike style bands, right, which I have several of, the ones with the
Yeah.
the rubbery ones with the holes in them, love those. I'm actually wearing one of the Nike versions of the Velcro band because
Yeah.
it's got the little Nike swoosh on the little tab there. So there are some really great bands with those, but my overall take is it's just a solid lineup. Like you said, there's something for
Yeah.
everybody in there. Um, I do think there is a bigger difference between the SE3 or whichever version they're on, which is the 3, I think, right now, versus the Series 11. We can talk about that when we get in and dive into them. maybe when we
Yeah.
talk about default, just because there are a couple of key things that I've heard as they've talked about Apple's 50th anniversary, which is this year, right? One of the things that there's a new book out. I got to get it. It's by David Pogue. Jason Snell reviewed it. It's a phenomenal book, and he had an interview with David Pogue. And one of the things David said was that I don't think we often realize that Apple is also a medical devices company, right?
Right.
And the Apple Watch
Right.
for sure is one of those. So I want to talk about that medical device portion when it comes to the SE versus the Series 11. But overall, it's solid. You've got a budget friendly one. You've got a mid tier, which is the Series 11, and then you've got the if you want to go all out, there you go. So I
Yeah.
think it's a pretty solid lineup.
Yeah. So I'm a little different with that. While I agree that these three versions that are out, they are solid and it gives something for everyone, I do feel that something's missing. And let me explain what I mean. While the Ultra 3 is a premium watch, it's also more rugged, right? It's also thicker, bigger battery and things like that. I feel that there's even room for a more expensive, more premium Apple Watch. And I don't necessarily mean that I want a $1,500 watch for just for the sake of having a more expensive watch. But I think with these three, right, to give something for everyone, I think they can at least open a door for more premium materials, right? I don't know if you remember before they started using ceramic in more things. Remember the ceramic case was the premium version or the edition version of and then they moved on to titanium in a couple of generations. I think you had that one, right? One of
Yeah.
the before the Ultra, titanium was a more premium material. And while again, I'm not saying Apple just throw us something that's expensive just for the sake of being expensive, but I think that that opens the door for, like I say, a more premium Apple Watch, right? I know it wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but you remember the original Apple Watch, that first version, they had a gold version of it. Now it was more like movie stars and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So not necessarily saying that I want a gold version or if I would buy a gold version. I had the brush gold or no, it was a stainless steel one, but it was the gold version. I just didn't look good with bands, just didn't go good with it. But I can see maybe a white ceramic one or or some other more premium materials, something like that would definitely help. And then that'll give something, like I said, for everyone, right? You have your Ultra 3 for campers and hikers and things like that. But then you'll go back to that original form factor, but in a more expensive material, something like that. And I think that would kind of round out the lineup. It wouldn't be for everyone, just like we talked about, like with the Mac Studio and stuff like that. But you would know if you were in the market to buy a $1,400 Apple Watch, then you can afford to get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I think a more premium version would kind of round this lineup out more. But with the three we have, definitely a solid lineup of Apple Watches.
So I think when we talked about the iPhone and we were talking about if they're going to come out with an Ultra that's not the folding or whatever the 18 Pro series
Yeah.
is going to be, we talked about what we really want is maximum technology packed into the device that we want, right? And so
Yes.
it almost sounds like that's what you're saying, right? We can use higher end
Yeah.
finishes. Maybe they transition to battery technology so that you get the smaller form factor with the bigger battery, right? Or more battery
Right.
life in it, those kinds of things. It almost sounds like that's what you're saying. So let's pack all
Right.
the tech into a watch that's not the rugged get for outdoors. Now, I mean, I would definitely be tempted by something like that, but I go outdoors enough, mountain bikes, and I crash enough and do all of those kinds of things that I'm
Yeah.
not sure I would want that high end of a watch that wasn't built rugged like this. Maybe it would be just as durable. That would be fine. But yeah, I can see that. That makes a lot of sense. So, I think the problem you and I have with all of our devices, except for the Mac, is give me all the things in my iPad Pro, give me all the things in my top end iPhone, and give me all
Hmm.
of the things in my Apple Watch. And then we're going to talk about AirPods later. Same thing, right? So those things that we really care about, just give us all the things, right? Put as much tech as
Yeah.
you can into it, make it as awesome as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you.
So that being said, I know you don't have a daily driver, right? So, but which of the devices stands out the most to you? Not, I'm not talking about which one most people should buy, but if you had to say this is the outstanding Apple Watch, which one would it be? Would it be the Ultra since it's currently the high end, or do you have something different?
No, it would be the Ultra, and not necessarily because it's the high end, but because like I mentioned before, this is how the Apple Watch should have always been, right? I think that the Ultra, and I'm further down the line, this would definitely be the case, but the Series 11 should be the Ultra, and the Ultra should be more packed, like you said, with all of the tech, all of the bleeding edge stuff. And I know we're going to talk about the health stuff later, but they've been rumoring the blood pressure monitor and blood pressure sensor and a whole lot of other things. They've been rumoring it. The Ultra should be the watch that gets that first, right? And then the other watches should get it. So yeah, the Ultra, it just stands out. And number one, because of battery life, right? That's the main thing. The screen is brighter, the screen is bigger. I do like the idea of some of the gestures and stuff that you use with it. But if anything, just the battery life alone, the watch shouldn't be something that you have to charge constantly, right? Once a day is fine. Or if you're really active, you're using cellular, you're making calls and stuff like that, of course, you may have to charge it multiple times. Or just give yourself a little midday boost or something like that when you jump in the shower or something like that. But um, no, the Ultra definitely stands out because it's so much better than the model that's under that one, which is the Series 11. So
Right.
yeah, the Ultra definitely stands out. What about you?
Yeah, for me, it's the Ultra as well. Um, it's my daily driver, so I have the
Right.
Ultra. It's the brushed black, whatever color they call black this
Yep.
time around, right? I did have the silver Ultra One. I skipped the Ultra Two because it just wasn't enough of
Yeah.
an upgrade. But the biggest thing for me, I do like the durability. I'm not a huge fan of the orange, on the buttons and that kind of stuff because it's just again, orange is just not my thing. And the fact that like some of the stuff sticks out a little further. It's easy to catch those things on stuff if you're really talking rugged. It is super durable, so I haven't had any
Yeah.
major problems with it. But yeah, it's my daily driver. I think if they had the Series 11 with all the features of the Ultra, I'd prefer that form factor just because it's more subtle, some of those kinds of things. But it's great. I mean, I love the
Yeah.
fact that I don't have to charge it. I don't have to worry about charging it, right? I can throw it on when I go
Yeah.
in the shower. And my bigger problem is for whatever reason, it doesn't seem like you can turn off the limiting charging. I'll turn it off in the settings on the watch, to charge to 80% so it preserves the battery.
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't want that. Just always charge to 100. I can turn that off, but then it still seems to turn itself back on somehow. So I don't know. I don't know if they've
Really?
got the algorithm wrong, right? Because like your iPhone will charge to a certain level and then finish charging up right before it knows you're gonna pull it off the
Right.
charger. So I don't know. It's just weird. It doesn't seem like it will do that. So I wish it would just let me charge it to 100% all the time because then I'd have to deal with it even less. But yeah, daily
Yeah.
driver, it's the one that stands out to me. Let's talk let's talk about default purchase. And this is where I want to talk about the SE versus the 11. So we might mix and match here just a little bit. The SE is great, right? It's 299, so or I'm sorry, 249 versus 399 for the Series 11. So it's
Yeah.
$150 difference. The screen is a little dimmer. It's not wide angle OLED. The colors are a little bit different, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
where I think you have to think about this and why I would recommend if you have the money that the 11 be the default for everybody is
Yeah.
you don't get hypertension notifications. I was super excited that we were getting hypertension stuff. And then when you go to set it up, the first thing it asks you is if you've already been diagnosed with hypertension. And if you have,
Yeah.
then it says, okay, you can't use this feature.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Yeah. No, just do what
okay,
your
well,
doctor.
never mind. So it doesn't work for me. So you don't get that. You don't get the ECG, which not a huge deal, and you don't get blood oxygen. So
Yeah.
3 of the big health sensors you're not getting in the SE3 versus the 11. And so if I think about default, unless you're going for budget, I would spend the extra $150 and go with the 11 because you get those extra sensors in there and all of that kind of stuff. So there's
Right.
some other stuff
Right.
that you get can go deeper in the water. You get a water temperature sensor. Those aren't as big of a deal. You do get better battery life, so it's 6 hours better battery life in the
Yeah.
11 versus the SE3. But my biggest thing is if you're getting the watch and you want to have it as a health device,
Yeah.
then you've got to go with the 11, right? So that's my recommendation is the default purchase is the 11 for the extra health features in and of themselves.
Yeah. You know, and we'll get to the why of the show and all of that later, but I will just mention that, Greg and I, we love to do this because when you go to make these decisions, we want to try to at least give you some kind of informed decision, right? We don't want you to go in. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think that most people don't realize that the SE doesn't have that, doesn't have those features. They go and buy an SE because it's one, the best price, right? It looks like all the rest of it, say for the Ultra, but it looks like all the other Apple Watches that are out there. And then they get it and they realize that they're missing these features and they'll either just go with it. Hopefully they'll return it and get the version that they want that does that has the features that are, that they were looking for. But I think a lot of people don't realize that the SE is lacking so much, right? So again, this is what me and Greg love to do. We love to give you our opinions, talk about specs and features and things, and that way you can make an informed decision. And also, I always talk about those guys at the Apple Store. They're very helpful. Hopefully, they're explaining it to more people. But if you go in with your mind set up that you just want the cheapest version, just know what you're getting into, right? So my default is just like yours, Greg. Series 11 should be the default that you buy. I don't want to offend anyone, but the SE is definitely a kid watch. It's a kid intro to technology, right? And now I don't want to offend any adults that have the SE and you're doing fine with it. Just like some of Pop Life flavors, we say, oh, this is a kid flavor. The kids love it, but big kids love it too. So big kids love the SE. It is still an Apple Watch. It is still a very capable device. It'll get you all of your texts and your notifications and your steps and all of that, which is probably the main feature that people are looking for is to get into Apple Health and fitness, and they want to track their steps and their heart rate and stuff like that. But just know that it's missing a lot of those health features and stuff. And you take a big hit on the battery life too.
Mhm.
So perfect for younger kids, we're talking 10, 11, 12, different conversation aside about when to start introducing technology like that in your child's life. But definitely preteens, even younger kids, I would say even up to maybe, 14, 15 like that. But yeah, know what you're getting into with the SE because it's not as full featured and as powerful as the Series 11. And like Greg said, for the $150 different in the price, the difference in the price, you get so much more tech packed into the Series 11 that it should be the default.
Yeah. So I think that was a great lead in to the next segment, right? Which is when do you not go with the default, right? When do you not go with the
Right.
Series 11? And I think that was a perfect use case. I think there are two for the SE budget. When budget rules a day and you just need something like that, great. I would argue that if budget's ruling the day on that, maybe the watch shouldn't be your purchase, but everybody
Right.
does what they choose to do with stuff. But that that other scenario that you brought up, right? I've got a younger kid that I don't want them to have a phone because I don't want them exposed to social media. I don't want them
Yeah.
spending hours and hours and hours on their screen. So I was picked up the grandkids yesterday at school
Mhm.
and there was a girl walking by talking on an Apple Watch. I assume it was an Apple Watch. It could have been a Gab watch, one of
Yeah.
those other watches for kids. But if your family is in the Apple ecosystem our rule was we wanted a way to contact kids at each school when we were in Texas,
Yeah.
right? We wanted to have a way to get a hold of them. So if you want to do something like that, or if you've got your oldest is getting up there in elementary school and you want them to be able to say, hey, here's where we're at to meet you to pick us up, or they're going to friends' houses now, or they're going to practices, and you're not there chaperoning them, and you want them to have a way to be able to contact you, I think the Apple Watch SE, get it with the cellular. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but
Right.
get it with the cellular, and then you set it up for them and you lock it down. You lock down who they can call, right? So I think that is the ideal scenario, in my opinion, for the Apple Watch SE, because also as a general rule, you don't have to worry about those other health features, right? You're not worried about blood oxygen or ECG or hypertension in kids
Yeah.
that age as a general rule. I know there are exceptions. So I think that's the ideal scenario. A lot of times we've also talked about entry level for our older generation of folks that we're recommending devices for. And I
Hmm.
think this is the time when you don't want to do that, right? You're going to get an Apple Watch for grandma that's 85 years old because you want her to have an easy way to contact you. You should get the one that also has all of the other things that can alert you or her
Yeah.
if there is some sort of a health thing that they need to be concerned about and go in and talk to a doctor about. And the watches don't diagnose, they don't do any of that. All they're doing is giving you information and saying, you probably need to go talk to a health professional
Yes.
about this new thing that's changed in your life. So, yeah, those are the scenarios when I can see you go to the SE3, particularly the young kid one. But other than that, just default to the 11.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
So then the question is, who is the Ultra for?
Yeah.
Probably nobody that we associate a ton with in our lives. We get it because it's the best. It's got
Right.
the best battery life. If battery life is what you care about the most and the look is good for you and you can handle the size because it is big,
It
right?
is big.
Then absolutely battery life all the way. But beyond that, all of the commercials are for scuba divers and rugged mountain climbers and that
Yes.
race that's like 100 days across the continent, those kinds of things. And I do absolutely none of those things, right?
Right.
But I will go out and do a 25-mile bike ride. And if I do a 25-mile bike ride, I want to track it. I want the dual GPS. I want all of those kinds of things because getting all the information is important to me. And I want to be able to go do that bike ride and not worry about having it on the charger up until the minute I leave and
Hmm.
then eking out that bike ride down to 1% and having to put it on the charger right when I get home in order to get through the rest of the day, like when we're camping or something like that. When I
Yeah.
camp, I may go on those bike rides and then I may be doing a whole bunch of other outdoor stuff. So I'm not ready to shower or, do any of those kinds of things. And I just want the
Yeah.
watch to just keep on trucking. Right. And
Yeah.
the 11 has good battery life, right? It's not horrible.
Right.
So it
It'll get you through a
might,
day. Yeah.
it might get through some of that, but you're talking the difference of 24 hours
Hmm.
versus 42 hours of battery life, right? It's
Yeah.
just this dramatic difference. So if battery is king, or you're going to do a lot of workouts, like if you're somebody that I do a strength workout and then I do a cardio workout and
Hmm.
then I want to go for a walk in the evening with the dog and I want to track that too, then yeah, you want to go with the Ultra as long as you can handle looking at it on your wrist every single
Right.
time you pull it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It is marketed to people that are very active, very outdoorsy. And I mentioned to one of our vendor friends the other day, I consider myself an indoorsman, right? I know they have outdoorsmen and people that are hunting and fishing and hiking and doing all of that. Yeah. I probably won't get around to any of that anytime soon, but I do love the extra battery life. That's the main feature for me is the size of that battery. The bigger screen too is also really great. I always say it doesn't happen to me. I have to ask my brother and my cousins and things like, what is it like getting older? Right. And I would imagine for guys getting older, again, it doesn't happen to me, but having that bigger screen, it makes things a lot easier to read. when you're just glancing at notifications and stuff like that. Yeah, it helps me out a lot seeing that. Not me personally. No, having that bigger screen, a bigger, brighter screen is also a game changer when it comes to Apple Watches. So, but what I fear, and the same thing we talked about when we talked about the iPad, is people kind of default to the biggest and baddest and most expensive, right? And that shouldn't be the case. The Ultra is different. And while you talked about two use cases or reasons why to go with the Ultra, one thing that I can think of is if you've had most of the versions, like let's say up to Series 8 or 9, if you bought, you know what I mean, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you wanted something different because the Apple Watch hasn't changed, right? Still the same bands, the screens have gotten bigger, uh, but still the same band, still the overall size of it, even though they've gotten thinner, not thinner, less taller. They've gotten shorter, right? But they still basically all look the same. And you wanted something different. You wanted a change. That could be another reason why you would want to go with the Ultra because it's only in its third generation and it's quite different from the other watch, even though thankfully we still got to keep all our bands, right? Greg, you have a drawer just like me of you open a drawer and it's just bands everywhere, right? So we got to keep all of our bands, but still get somewhat of a different form factor. But yeah, I don't want people to default just because it's the biggest and most expensive. I want you to know what you're getting out of going to the Ultra and, you know, definitely give the Series 11 a good look because it is still a really good watch. And like you said, the battery life is not terrible on the SE. It is livable on the Series 11, but man, it can get you through a couple of days with a certain level of activity on the Ultra. So if battery life is something you're looking for, then I would say that would be definitely the main use case.
Okay, so Jason, I think it's time for us to move on to buying advice. We've talked about the default should be the 11, except for in a couple scenarios. Then the Ultra, right, you go up
Right.
to. So if you're going to buy one of these devices, what's the biggest thing? So there's not a lot of options, right? It's not like you can increase the memory or any of those kinds of things. You buy one of
Right.
these, you can choose to get cellular or GPS, and then you can pick a color, right? I think those
Yeah.
are really the only things that you can, once you've decided on which version of the watch you're going to get. So, GPS versus cellular, if you're in the Ultra, you don't have a choice, right? You
Right.
get the cellular version, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But on the SE and the other, you can choose to get just GPS or GPS plus cellular. So,
Right.
what's your take on that?
Yeah. So like we talked about with the SE, it's just not a super powerful device, right? Especially when it comes to battery life. And cellular really eats away, chips away at that battery life. So I just can't think of many cases where you would need the SE or want the SE and need cellular. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You'll be really destroying what little battery life it has on it. And also cellular on the watch that's still so dependent on your iPhone, right? It's still we been saying for years that the Apple Watch needs to break away from the iPhone. It needs to be a separate device. It needs to be even capable for an Android or somebody with a Google phone to still get an Apple Watch, right? And still have access to the health app and different features and stuff. But that's a deeper conversation that we can go into another time. I just don't see a need to have an SE and a cellular model with your iPhone in your pocket, right? Just
Yeah,
go with this. Just go.
I think the exception is if you're setting this up for a kid that's not gonna have a phone, then you
Right,
absolutely
right.
wanna get the cellular, but the battery life is a real thing, so you may have to train them on how to use the cellular, turn
Yeah,
on and off the cellular, which may, in theory, defeat the purpose of you being able to get a hold of them. So there's a bunch of considerations, right, like that, but that's the only
yeah,
place where I can really think of that I would get cellular on the SE is if you're getting it for a kid that doesn't have another device,
yeah.
then you want them to have cellular to be able to communicate.
Right, right. So now when we talk about the Series 11, I think that there are more cases to where you would want to consider getting a cellular model, especially if you work in the corporate field, whether that's IT or whatever you're doing. If you're really, really mobile and, we're talking again, you have your phone in your pocket, but if you find yourself, whether that's uniform, job requirement, the business that you're in, the building that you're in, if they have any restrictions and stuff on cell phones, and most of them, if they restrict phones, they restrict smartwatches too. But if you're in one of those situations where you find yourself without your phone all the time, and you need the Series 11, then the cellular model may be something that you want to consider, right? It's just more handier, right? To go without your phone. And I'm not saying even if it's just like a job restriction or something like that. But if you go to the gym and your sweatpants or your outfit, your gym attire doesn't have any pockets or something, if you're riding a bike and you don't have a mount to put it on, and you're kind of iffy about keeping the phone in your pocket, so that cellular version I think is just more ideal for the Series 11. And the Ultra, like we said, we don't have a choice, but um, yeah, if you find yourself having to ditch that phone, then a cellular Series 11 may be the better choice.
Yeah.
And that's what, $129 more for the
Depends on
cellular
the
model?
model. I think on the 11, it's 150 more.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Mm.
$100 more on the 11.
Okay.
So,
So yeah, we're talking $100 different.
but
Again, if you
it's not just the $100, right? Because then every month you're going to be paying the fee. And unless you've got a plan with your carrier that gives you a discount on that, you could be paying 10, 15, or 20 bucks a month to
right.
get the cellular plan on top of it, which sounds like you and I haven't talked about this. I actually turned off cellular on my watch quite a while ago.
Okay.
When I was living in Nephi, I didn't worry so much about it because I was doing rides that were local. I wasn't doing anything spectacular, so I could just have
Yep.
my watch. But down here, for me, the photography, I got to have my phone to be able to take the
Right.
pictures, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so I'm doing that all the time. So I actually turned it off. But I did enjoy when I wasn't going somewhere that I knew I would want to take pictures and stuff. I did enjoy being able to leave the phone at home,
Hmm.
connect my headphones, have all my music. Yes,
Yep.
as many gigs of music as it'll let me load, connect all of that stuff on there and listen to my podcasts and music and all that kind of stuff and not have the phone with me. So I actually don't have cellular turned on right now and I haven't missed it. I think if I was going to the rec center every day and just walking the track,
Hmm.
that I might be inclined to turn that back on. But even when I do that, I'm taking notes and I could do that on the watch, but it's a little more cumbersome. But I'm taking notes of things I think about, or I'm doing conference calls. When I was working at
Yeah.
my last jobby job, I spent a lot of time doing conference calls, walking around that track over and over and over again so that I could multitask. So I think there are those scenarios when it would be good. I think the default is don't buy the cellular
Right.
and don't turn on the cellular unless you know you need it. The only other thing, I guess, then is color. And we really don't have this problem right now with color, but we talked about this with the phone and we talked about it with the MacBook. And then, personal story for me and for you, we both had bright, saturated color Apple Watches
Yep.
and there was no hand me down. So you had the
No one
gold,
wanted it.
I had the red, and the red was an even bigger problem for me because it really stood out at like church and when I'd go to the temple and
Right.
those kinds of things. So I was always putting a case over the top of it to try and tone down the brilliant red that it was. I absolutely loved the color. I thought it was phenomenal.
It
And if I
was. Yeah.
go back to wanting a smartwatch, or not a smartwatch, a swim watch, then I would think, okay, yeah, I'll get the red one for my swim watch version
Hmm.
and then have the other one for everything else. And you can do the dual watch lifestyle. It's not as,
Yeah.
for
You
the stuff
tried
I
it.
was doing with it, it's not as synchronized as I would have liked it to be, like with my podcasts and stuff like that. So that's a
Yeah.
challenge. Um, but the colors now are super subtle, right? I mean, the 11's got the colors. You have in titanium, you can do natural gold, and it's not really a brilliant gold, right? It's a more subtle gold, or the black, which really looks really, really good. It's a little too shiny for my taste, but it looks super good.
Yeah.
Under aluminum, you've got rose gold, silver, space gray, which is just a darker silver, and jet black. So you've also got that dark black. That's it, right? There's no more of these brilliant colors. So that would be my only other piece of advice is think about how long you're going to have this. Does the color go with everything you want it to? And if they do come out with fun colors again, just be conscious that a bright orange, yellow, or green Apple Watch may not go with everything you're going to wear. And it's not like your phone where you can keep it in your pocket and only pull it out as needed. It's always on your wrist and always visible. So,
Or you'll have to add a bulky case to it or some kind of cover or some there's slick wraps and stuff like that or skins and stuff for it. But yeah, yeah, just be conscious. No one wants those. You can't hand them down. They're harder to resell. Again, like we said before, Apple's trade-in is awesome. Trading in their old devices. So you always be able to trade it back to Apple. They don't care about the color. Yeah, I had a stainless steel, a gold stainless steel Apple Watch. I can't remember which series it was. It was a few back, but before the Ultra, and yeah, yeah, no one wanted it. Not even my oldest son. I think I ended up selling it on like OfferUp or something, and had to take a pretty big hit on it. And yeah, so just be conscious of those colors. But thankfully, with all of the subtle colors, you still get an awesome assortment of bands, right? So you can go really loud on
yep.
band, just get a simple the Starlight or the gray color and just get a really funky band if you want it. You know, you can really show off your character and your personality with that. And come home from work and you're ready to go to church or some kind of other function or whatever, you can just pop that band off and throw something more casual on or more
Yeah.
sporty on if you're going to the gym or however. So again, I mentioned our drawer of bands, but I mean, we bought that first generation of Apple Watches, and for the most part, we still have all of those bands, right? The
Yeah.
ones that stood the test of time, right? The ones that quality held up. I think my second generation of the Nike Plus band that I had, it was the what is it, the Volt green one? The
Hmm.
little button, the little magnet, spring in there, it doesn't lock. So, and that was one of my favorite ones. I wore it all the time, and it finally gave out on me. So like we said, we can go on Amazon from the very cheap from, $5 if that's your style, all the way up to the Hermes band that I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier.
Yeah. And you can do that with cases too. I mean, they have bling cases, they have
Right.
funky cases, they have all of those things. I actually do wear a case on my Ultra when I go out for bike rides because if I go down hard in our terrain, it's
And you
rock,
have before.
right? Yeah, it's gonna smack it and all those kinds of things. So I do just pop a plastic case on and pop it off. And I have two specific bands I use for workouts and then everything else. And I probably change my bands multiple times a day. I'll wear one to work
Yeah.
out, then I'll put on whatever one matches my stuff. And then if it's, I only like to sleep in the Velcro ones
Yes.
because
Yeah.
those are way better. So for sleeping because they're more comfortable. So then I'll put
Yeah.
on one to go to sleep.
Yeah,
Uh,
I noticed like the ocean bands, all of the rubbery ones, they're hard to sleep in. They are, yeah, yeah. Get a comfortable one for lounging and stuff like that.
All right. So I think as far as what I'm looking forward to, they fixed one of my big complaints. The workout app just got a little bit easier to use on the watch. They really messed it up with the latest version of Watch OS. It made it hard to start the right workout. There's been a lot of complaints about that, but they did simplify it a little bit. But
Yes.
what I'm looking forward to, I would love for them to get glucose. That would be great. And I do want them to fix the software so that I can get a relative blood pressure even though I have hypertension, right? I'm on
Hmm.
meds, it's controlled. I know my routine, but I would like it to be able to measure it. I can throw on my cuff and I do that on a regular basis, but I would really like them to improve on that so that I could use that feature. And then finally, the synchronization if you're going to have the dual watch because I may be in the market for a swim watch later this year. The one I was using is dying out, but I would love for my watches to be more in sync
Right.
right? For the same podcast to be on one watch versus the other, same music. That's a little easier because you load it manually, but I would have to remember to turn it on before I would go swim hours in advance, make sure it's charged, connect it to my phone so that it would resync everything. which makes no sense because it's on my Wi-Fi. So just get everything synced back up. Let Overcast do its behind the in the background sync over Wi-Fi, even though it's not connected to my phone, right?
Right.
So those are the things that I would like them to improve on. Anything you wanted them to improve on for the watch this year?
I do. We always want better battery life, right? We always want faster Wi-Fi, faster connections and stuff like that. Here's one thing that I wouldn't mind. Now, I can't speak for everyone, right? But I wouldn't mind. So if you can't put those features in the watch, like you said, the glucose, blood pressure, things like that, put it in the watch, then I would like some Apple Watch specific sensors, external sensors that'll pair directly with the watch. Right now, I know I can get a blood pressure. I have a blood pressure monitor and a scale, and my wife has her glucose monitor and stuff, and they all sync with Apple Health, right? So we can monitor all of it to show up. But I would like maybe some kind of smart patch or a little band or something like that. Maybe something not as bulky as a blood pressure monitor or something, but maybe just a little band I can put on, just an external sensor that syncs directly with the watch that I can wear during a workout or again, I'm never going hiking. Well, never say never. I'll go hiking one day, but if I ever do have to do that, I can still get those accurate measurements and stuff from the watch, but not have to depend so much on a third party monitor or something that I have to use here at the house, right? So maybe, and again, some people probably hearing me like, why not just throw that in the watch? I don't want any other devices. I don't want to have to manage or charge any other devices or whatever to have to use. But it's just something to kind of bridge that gap until technology catches up, right? Because we're still talking about this size of a device, right? It's still pretty tiny. So whenever they add something new, I mean, they're literally having to rework the device, right? And you heard me say earlier, Greg and I both, the Apple Watch is probably our second, if not our first device. And yet I don't have a watch on my wrist right now. And that's because I got gift card for Christmas. I did trade in my watch, and I have two different Apple gift cards. And as I keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, we're getting closer and closer to a refresh. And I would hate to buy one now. And again, I did it to myself. I would buy an Apple Watch, an Ultra 3, and I would be happy with it. But Ultra 4 comes around and it has everything that we've been waiting for, that we want in a watch, or even a different form factor, which would really drive me wild, having to stay on the Ultra 3 and the Ultra 4 is a different form factor or a different size. So, but back to what I was saying, yeah, I'm looking forward to possibly having these features in the watch, right? Like you said, a glucose monitor, extra sensors, better sensors, uh, some of those ones to avoid those lawsuits and stuff that they ran into a bit of trouble with a couple of years back. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to just overall improvements, better battery life, faster radio, faster processor, things like that. I guess, I say wishful thinking, but we know that it's going to be better anyway. So
Yeah.
whatever comes out, I'm sure I'll be happy with.
I'll be curious to see if they actually do a meaningful upgrade to the Ultra this year. Because 1 to
Yeah,
2 was not a meaningful upgrade. 2
it
to 3
wasn't.
was meaningful. So will 3 to 4 be an incremental?
Yeah,
So I'll
yeah,
be curious to see how that goes. I guess we'll find out in September, right?
yeah,
It could be
yeah.
a very expensive September.
Well, will we maybe by WWDC we'll know, right? And we're expecting changes to the health, and they're making a big push towards fit and stuff like that. So we'll see with the next version of WatchOS if some of the features they announce, are they going to need more powerful hardware or more, which of course they will, because they do even when they announce iOS and things like that. But yeah, yeah. We'll have an idea. I'll have a better idea by WWDC. Should I just go ahead and get my Ultra 3? And let me tell you, before we move on, let me tell you how prepared I was. I was going to get the black one like you. I know you don't like the orange, but I kind of do. So the match with those orange buttons, I have a screen protector with an orange ring around it that matches that color. And one of our vendor friends, she does 3D printing. She printed some orange plugs to go inside of the holes, the gaps in the ocean band, and it was just going to be black and orange, and it looks amazing. I saw a guy on Reddit. He had it, and he gave his 3D printed plans. I sent them over to her, and yeah, it was going to look amazing. So I'll get it soon. I'll get it soon. WWDC, I'll know if I'm going to pull the trigger or not.
I would not count on an Ultra 4 upgrade. If I was you, I would just go get it
Yeah,
now.
I think so. And I miss it. I miss my watch so much.
Well, speaking of things that you took forever to purchase, let's dive into AirPods because that seems to be a whole saga with you about whether you actually buy AirPods when yours die and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
let's dive into our AirPods segment. Jason, do you want to give us a rundown of what the lineup looks like?
Yeah, yeah. So the AirPods is, and I have some opinions about this too, but starting right with the entry level of the AirPods, the current version is the AirPod 4, and that's the one where you get the white tips like this without the wire, and it does the automatic syncing between devices and stuff. So if you're on your iPad, it'll just connect to the iPad, switch back to the phone. Then they have those same AirPod 4s with active noise cancellation. And that's the feature where you can just block out all of the background noise and stuff like that. The AirPod 4 doesn't, the base level doesn't offer that. Then you have your Pro 3s, the AirPod Pro 3s, and these are more feature packed, right? Also, the form factor is a little different. These are more the plug types, right? It has a little ball and it kind of sticks in your ear, and it helps with that noise cancellation and things like that. And they also have the live translation feature, which is still in beta last time I checked, but still really, really cool. If you're a Trekkie or you watch Star Trek, you're familiar with the universal translator, right? Everyone speaks their language and it sounds the way it sounds to you in English or whatever language you speak.
Jay, they actually did push that down to the AirPods 4 with active noise cancellation. So there's
Okay.
a bigger leap with those. The active with noise cancellation, basically, you don't get as good of noise cancellation, and you
Right.
don't get some of the health features, worse battery life, of course, but
Right.
you do get the adaptive audio, the conversation awareness. You do get live translation on
Yeah.
those.
Okay.
So, yeah, they pushed that to the AirPods 4, but you're still absolutely right. The AirPods Pro 3 are feature packed.
Right. Right. And they earn the name Pro, right?
Yeah,
These are the reason why they're the
absolutely.
Pro. And then you have the AirPod Maxes, and yeah, these are professional quality, studio level sound. These are not for someone that just, although, again, we talked about people just defaulting to the latest and greatest and the biggest and baddest. I see the Maxes all the time, but I don't necessarily think that the use cases that they're using them for warrant that price tag. But the AirPod Maxes, and they're on the second generation, right? The
Yeah, they
Max 2,
just launched those.
yeah, these are
Yeah,
new, and yeah, not for everybody, but if you know you need them, especially for people who are producing music or sounds or podcasts or any media like that, definitely right up your alley. But they come with a pretty hefty price tag. What are the
550.
current? Yeah,
550, they didn't
550.
change. So I'm using the first generation of them. They had that minor update when they switched the lightning connector to USB-C, but now they've
Right.
got all the new chips and everything in them with this latest release, but the price is still 550 bucks. I'll tell you, they sound phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
They absolutely sound better than anything else, but they're still metal, they're still heavy. They're still not the most comfortable. Like, we recorded for several hours last week. We're recording for multiple hours this week, and I'm going to have a headache when I get done with them because they're not designed for that. But yeah,
Yeah.
they've released the second version and they're great. If you want these and they're comfortable for you, then more power to you. But I did not buy the newest version. I'm not tempted to buy the newest version because
Right.
mostly I use these for when we record the show.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just going to jump right into the overall state then of the lineup. And I'm going to say confusing, right? And I'm going to say that because if you know what you're looking for, you know the features that you want, you watched the right ad, you watched or you got a recommendation from somebody, you know what you're looking for. But with two different versions of the AirPods, right? The 4 and the 4 with NC, the are still drifting around out there, and they're always on sale, and they're always deeply discounted to some attractive price, which again, most people are like, "Oh, the AirPod Pros?" And they're, for this price, I'm just gonna get on that. The Pro 3s are really feature packed. They're really great. I do have a pair. I'm thankful I upgraded. I carry them around with
Finally.
me all the time. Yep, finally. And just with those alone, and then you throw the Maxes in, just really, it's really really confusing to most people, right? We
Yeah.
we know the difference between them. But the reason why I say that is because, and I mention those sales because I noticed with the shopping holiday last year, we saw something that we hadn't, I don't believe we ever saw. Well, we've saw discounts on new products, right? But when the Pro 3s were released, almost what, maybe 2 to 3 months later, when we got to the holiday season, well, we were seeing them for like $30 off of the price, right? We were seeing some pretty deep discounts, and it kind of made me wonder, like, what is going on? Why is Amazon selling the latest version of the AirPod Pros for $30 off? And then they were $40 off. And then you sent me a link. It was like almost $50 off of the price, right? Off of the you sent me a link. They were like $200 or $209 or something like that. So um $40 off, $50 off. It was a little strange. And then even with that discount, that push the already readily available Pro 2s that are, again, still in stocks and at Walmart and Amazon and stores, you can still walk in and buy them in some places. That pushed that price down even more.
Yeah.
So, what do you decide when you don't even know the difference between the AirPod 4s and the AirPod 4s with active noise cancellation? And then you have these Pro 2s that are basically the same price as the 4s with ANC on them. It was just really confusing. And I still think that it's really confusing time. So again, I talked about my feelings about the iPhone SE. I have those same feelings about the AirPod 4s. I don't see a need for them. Give the base model with the active noise cancellation. Those would be the AirPod 4s, the Pro 3s, and then your Max 2s. So that's how I feel. I just feel that the lineup is kind of confusing. What about you?
I think the other thing you didn't mention is that they all fit differently.
They do.
Right.
They do.
So
Yeah.
Pro 2 to Pro 3s were a different fit, and there was a lot of hubbub about that, whether they were still comfortable. For some people, they were. For some people, they were less comfortable. For some people, they were the same.
Yeah.
They do fit differently. And then your fours, I think the two different versions of the four fit about the same. But then
Yes.
when you go from the four to the pros, they fit differently. But Pro 2 to Pro 3 fit differently because Apple's constantly tweaking that bud in your ear. And so I think that's part of the confusion. I do think they should have just called them AirPods and then AirPods 4 and then AirPods Pro,
Maybe
generations
that would have been
aside.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. But you have to take into account not only the feature differences, the price differences, but then also the look and feel. Because you could buy the $100 AirPods 4 or whatever they are, $150. It's
Hmm.
actually the ones that my wife bought because she doesn't like the noise cancellation. She never uses it. She doesn't
Right.
want any of that kind of stuff. So we just bought her those entry level ones, and she's fine with them. But if you buy those and they don't fit, then you have to go clear to the threes, and the threes may or may not still feel comfortable, even using
Yeah.
different tips. And there's third party tips and all that kind of stuff. And so I do think it's confusing. I do think it's a problem where there's a lack of consistency from one generation to the next.
Yes.
Even from the AirPods 4 to the AirPods Pro 3, I think there should have been a more consistent fit, unless Apple is really trying to do this because everybody's ears are so different. And it's not like your phone where everybody can, for the most part, I know there are some exceptions, can hold a rounded rectangle, or your computer, right?
Yeah.
Where its form factor is fine. But I think that's part of the confusion. And I'm not sure how they solve that problem, right? And so
Yeah.
then I start thinking about what devices stand out, which is my daily driver. It's the AirPods Pro 3, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just so many features packed into that device. But the problem I have when I start thinking about what should the default purchase be is I have no idea what's going to be comfortable
Yeah.
for someone. right?
Yeah.
So, but as far as standout device, the AirPods Pro 3, we didn't mention a couple of the features that they have. So not only do they have all of the conversation awareness, the spatial audio, all of those kinds of things, they actually have a heart rate sensor in them during workouts. And
Yeah.
I can see in my workout app when it's used my watch versus when it's used my AirPods.
Yes.
And you can tell the difference between the two. And it's all about getting a more accurate sense of what your heart rate is doing. Also, you can do a hearing test and you can use them as hearing aids or hearing supplements. They're not the same as real hearing aids, right? But you
Yeah.
can use them as hearing aids and hearing supplements, and they've got hearing protection features in them. So there's another bonus. They also have touch controls on the stems instead of
Yeah.
force controls, right? And then 8 hours of listening time on one charge versus 5 hours in the fours with noise cancellation. Now, the flip side is the AirPods 4 case will get you more recharges, but
Yes.
so and then you get a MagSafe charging case, and pretty much everything else is the same, but they're just so feature packed that I really want the pros to be my default recommendation. I think that's what everybody should consider and then adjust from there. But they do feel differently. And so I don't know what to tell folks. The 4 with ANC is probably what everybody should start with. You should probably put those in your ear because they're most like the earbuds of the past, right?
Yes.
They are
They
not
are.
this
Yeah.
new design that the Pro 3s are. So you should probably put those in your ear, see if they're comfortable. And if they are, that's the great starting point for you, unless you want the extra battery life or the health features that are associated with it. So if those things don't matter to you, then you should probably start with the AirPods 4. Like I said, for my wife, my only question I asked my wife was, do you use the noise cancellation features or not? And when she said no, I said, well, then there's no sense in us spending any extra money because all she's going to do is listen to podcasts and videos and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and there's $120. Well, I'm sorry, I got the wrong ones here. So if you go from the 4 to the 4 with noise cancellation, it's a $50 difference base price,
Yeah.
right? And then you go to the AirPods Pro 3, it's actually a $120 difference from the AirPods 4 plain, right?
Yeah.
So I think my best recommendation is the 4. It's the most likely to fit the most people and have the right feature set for most people. But I really want to make the Pro 3s the default, but I just don't know how you do that if you don't know if they fit you.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said the threes are your daily driver. Which bud do you use? Which, because it come with small, medium, and large.
Let me look at them. I think I actually use a different one in each ear. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my right ear's got a bigger bud and my left ear's got a smaller one. I'm not sure if they're the mediums and
Yeah.
smalls or the large and the medium, but I actually do use them. And I am using the default Apple ones because they're better now. They've got a little bit of foam. But
Right.
until this last generation, I actually used some from Complete that were foam tips. And then I put the larger AirPod that were just the plastic. I put
Yes.
those over the top of those because I like the feel of those in my ears, but then the foam underneath it made it fit better. So these
Okay.
actually fit me better. I'm one of the ones who the Pro 3s did a better job of fitting out of the box.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here. I remember my Pro Twos. No, I remember the first Pros. I didn't have the Pro Twos. Yeah, they didn't fit. I had some memory foam that I got from Amazon for like $14. They were the medium size. They're great for they don't because I have really sweaty ears, so they would just slide out, right? If it wasn't a tight grip. So I did get some of the same brand for my Pro 3s. They fit comfortably, they stay in. But yeah, even with the default Apple Buds, these just fit me more comfortably
Yeah.
than I just fell into that boat that these were better for me. And I understand that they were worse for a lot of people, but I'm gonna make the Pro 3s my discount, especially with this and again, unheard of with new Apple products, right? These deep discounts and they're not refurbished, they're not knockoff, they're not really good knockoff. These are just deeply discounted, sometimes up to like $40 off of the Apple's price, the retail price. So I have to make the Pro 3s
Yeah.
my default for most people.
And if you're
And they have
worried,
transparency mode, right? Even
yeah,
if noise cancellation doesn't work for you, you doesn't 'cause I'm like Karen, I don't use it. I
Yeah.
just I don't like to I guess I'm a very scary guy. If I have, the cancellation on and somebody, jumps or walks up on me, I like to hear what's going on in my environment around me, especially working outside like we do. So I never use it. I always have transparency on. So yeah, Pro 3s have to be the default for me.
And transparency is phenomenal. So if you want
Yes.
the default pass through, you're going to have to get the fours with ANC or the Pro 3s. So I use the adaptive mode. I'm always on adaptive because on some of the bike rides that I do, and by the way, they don't fall out when I go on bike rides. They did
Mhm.
not fall out when I had the major crash
Right,
a few
right.
months ago. They stayed in my ears. But some of the bike ride that I do is along one of the major streets here. It's on a paved path in order to get to the trail. And when I'm there, it dulls all the cars,
Yes.
right? But I know because I live in rattlesnake territory. I do know that if I have transparency on, I can hear enough of the environment around me that I should be able to find out if I've got a snake coming close to me or if I've got people behind me or other people on the trail. So I use the adaptive version because I don't want the pure transparency to pop through because then I'll just get those cars that are just
Yes.
way too loud right in my ear. So they were. I love the idea of them being the default. I've seen them for 199, which is $50 off, right? The price. I've seen that sale. So if you can find them on sale and they fit your ears, my number one, and I know we get to buying advice here in just a minute, but well, maybe we'll just do it now. My number
Yeah.
one piece of advice for you for buying advice is to make sure they're comfortable. Because if they're not
Yes.
comfortable, it doesn't matter if you spend the 250 or if you spend the 99 bucks, you're going to hate them and not use them and want to return them. Apple's got a great return policy. Pick the
Mhm.
ones you think you want. You don't want to try on a pair in the store because I know how that can seem a little weird. Pick the one that they want, try them on, use them for 2 or 3 hours at a time, and send them back if they don't fit. That's not a problem with Apple. So that's my number one piece of buying advice.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that the only thing you can pick out in colors is the Max, everything else is white, right? You don't get a choice. So there's nothing really to choose there to buy. Pick the model you want that you think you want the most, use them for 5 or 10 days, they don't fit, send them back. So if you start with the pros and they don't fit, send them back. See if you can find a pair of Pro 2s. If the Pro 2s don't fit, see if the ones with ANC fit, right? That would be my recommended go down through because you can still find the Pro 2s. But I love my Pro 3s. I actually have a pair of Pro 2s sitting in here. I haven't gotten rid of them yet. They're just sitting there. And
Y
so that's for buying advice. They got to be comfortable or you're just not going to wear them.
yeah, yeah, and you made a good point. Don't just pop them in your ear and say, "Oh, yeah, they fit, they feel good." No, plan on wearing them for 30 minutes or so, or 15 minutes maybe. You'll know when your ear starts getting that fatigue, right? It just starts feeling heavy. It just starts feeling sore and things like that. You're not gonna get that popping them in your ear, listening to a song for 2 minutes or something like that. No,
Right.
really give them a good test. Even if you're not listening to anything, even if you're not going to listen to any audio or whatever, just put them in your ear and see if you can deal with that weight and that heaviness or that feeling of just having something wedged in your ear. See if you can deal with that for like 20 minutes. If you can get through a good 20, 25 minutes or so with just wearing them, then yeah, they may be comfortable enough for you.
Yeah.
And then
So
try it again. Try it in the other ear, switch the tip, go down a size, try it in the other ear. Um, get active with them, right? Like Rick said, Apple has a good return policy. You got a little sweat on it, don't be rude, wipe them off before you ship them back to them. But no, go for a run. Go
yep.
outside. If you're not running or jogging or you're an indoorsman like myself, do something active. See if that sweat is going to cause them to slide out of your ear or something like that. And then make the choice. Well, these didn't do it for me. Let me try the pros. Or these were just too uncomfortable. They left my ears sore. I felt that fatigue of just having something on my earlobe all day. Then try the fours,
Yep.
or go down. So actually give them a good try before you decide, you know?
Yep. Absolutely. I think the only other piece of buying advice I would have, and then we probably just need to talk about the Maxes just a little bit, but the only other piece of buying advice I have is to buy Apple Care for them. So I
Yeah.
can't we're gonna do a whole series about whether Apple cares or not. Those of you that followed Gadgets for Families will know what that means, but it's not that expensive, or at least it wasn't. I don't know if you can buy it outright. It was like 29 bucks for
Yeah.
2 years of coverage on these, and I can't tell you how many times I had one bud have an issue,
Yeah.
right? Or a case have an issue and just use express replacement and did it. So I would definitely recommend getting the Apple Care for them. You can get the new Apple Care One, which will let you cover 3 devices. Great. That's what I've got on a bunch of mine. So anyway, we'll go through all of that in another show.
Yeah.
The only
So
other
I will mention before we move on, we bought my son's, my middle son, his birthday is in September. We bought him a pair last year. So we're in March. This is his fourth pair since September last year. So many different reasons why, different scenarios why. If you're buying them for teenagers, Apple Care is a must.
Yep,
So,
yep.
uh,
Almost
and
anything. Almost any of the devices if you're buying them
almost
for
anything, yeah,
teenagers, just get
teenagers,
the Apple
especially
Care.
when they buy them, which is why I mentioned this last pair that he has, we did not buy them. These were out of his pocket.
Yep.
So we'll see how long these last. And something's telling me a lot longer than the ones mom and dad bought. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how that works.
yeah,
I think the only other thing on the Max, so I think I was listening to ATP and Marco was talking about how he sees the Max headphones all over New York.
yeah,
Young kids, they're a
yeah,
fashion statement. They could be knockoffs. I mean, it's New York, so could
right.
definitely be knockoffs. But, you know, for podcasting, I actually tried recording this morning with just my AirPods. And when it's Bluetooth, there's just enough of a delay that it would
Right.
drive me absolutely nuts and it would make the show harder to edit. So if you're doing something where you want to edit or you want that kind of stuff, you get them. Now they've got USB-C to headphone jack. Mine are lightning. It works just fine. I'm plugged straight into my Mac right now. I can plug straight into my boom mic that I have if I want to use
Hmm.
it. So the sound is great, but they are 500 and they are
Yeah,
not the most comfortable ones out there. Sony, Bose, all of those are probably going to have headphones that are cheaper than the Apple ones
yeah,
and probably more comfortable because they're plastic and lighter. But here's the thing, it's the Apple ecosystem. So if I wasn't plugged in, they're auto switching between all my devices. They auto
yeah,
connect, they do all of those things. So that's the only buying advice I would have for the Maxes. Probably you shouldn't buy them unless you know you need them. And you definitely should consider Sony or Bose unless you're just saying, look, I'm an Apple guy, I have the money because they're 550 bucks. I'm in.
yeah,
So I love them. They're great. They sound phenomenal. Every time I watch a movie with these on, even compared to my AirPods Pro 3, I go, wow, they sound so much better. But I
yeah,
can't make it through, a full day's worth of stuff. And the AirPods, they just go in my pocket, right? And anytime I need them, I went to the dentist yesterday and there's no way I would have taken these to listen to in the waiting room, right? It was just pull the AirPods Pro out of the pocket and go.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, for the Maxes, you have to know what you're getting into. And actually, it wouldn't be a stretch to call those the pro level, the AirPod Pros because they are for professionals. They are a pro level device. They are studio quality. And, they sound amazing. They are for professionals who are working, whether they're, doing content creation or something like that. Not necessarily for kids on a playground. And like you said, a lot of them could be knockoffs, but a lot of them are just
yeah.
parents and grandparents like, hey, give me the best for my grandbaby or my child. So they go with the Maxes. And they're just not a playground type of playground type of headphone set, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it's the same thing we say. We fear that people just I want the latest and greatest or the biggest and baddest, and they go with the Maxes and they don't necessarily need them. Don't use
Yep.
any of the features. Don't even need that level of quality to listen to YouTube videos or something on their phone. For your toddler or whatever, you're playing Coco Melon while you're waiting in the waiting room at a doctor's office. They don't need that level of quality
Right.
to listen to Wheels on the Bus go round and round, but
Yeah.
people do it anyway.
Yep.
And it could be a fashion statement. Like, and Greg, even if you're not recommending Apple, there's still a lot because Greg has a lot. Greg, you have a lot of everything. But if we're talking about just headphones, how many different types of headphones do you have?
For me personally, I have the 2s, AirPods
Yeah.
Pro 2, the AirPods Pro 3s, the Shokz, and the Max. So I have 4 different kinds, but
Wait,
I
you have
just
your
look.
black you had some black noise canceling ones that you used to fly with. You don't have those? I don't
No,
remember
I
what
don't have
brand they
those
were.
anymore.
Okay, okay.
But I'm
I
also
remember you had
looking
them.
over here. We bought all 3 of the grandkids noise canceling headphones in case they're all like when we drove to California.
Yeah,
Absolutely was a must, right? To not have 3 different iPads in the back, driving me
yeah,
crazy. So we have those. My daughter has Pro 3s. My wife has 4s.
yeah,
So yeah, that's what we have here. And, some of that, like my shocks I bought for my last job because I was on conference calls all day long. And the
yes.
quality on the shocks, they just sit on the outside of your ear. They don't go in ear. They're on ear. They're little itty bitty things that go on air. We can have a conversation about those someday. But I had those because they were crazy comfortable. The battery life was phenomenal and the quality
Mhm.
was awesome. And it's still more comfortable than my AirPods Pro 3. I mean, literally, I was on 8 hours of calls straight, right? And
Right.
the Pro 3s, as comfortable as they are, they still are in your ear and they
Yeah,
start to get a little bit. So, but yeah, the Maxes are great. I had one of the ladies that worked for me that bought her a pair of Maxes and was using them as her headphones for conference calls and stuff like that, but she wasn't
yeah,
on nearly as many calls as I am. So,
yeah.
as far as looking forward to, I would like some colors in the AirPods, right? I'd love to have a black set
Yeah,
of
I
them.
would say
That would be
black.
super, super nice, or a dark gray even. But I really, really would like Apple to buy the company Shocks. So
Yeah,
I would love for them to do that because if I had my Shocks that sit out, because they do a whole bunch of different form factors. If I had those Shocks with Apple's technology to synchronize and do the sound and all of that kind of stuff, Apple's chips inside of those devices
yeah,
would just be phenomenal for me. Now, I would still have my AirPods Pro 3s or whatever version, right, for in ear and for those kinds of things. But I would love to wear my Shocks out on bike rides, but activating Siri is not as easy on those. You have to actually press and hold the button, right? It's not
right.
built in like that. They don't auto pair everywhere I want them to pair. I have an app that helps me control them that's separate. They're great. I love them. If they died, I would probably still buy another pair because I still use them often enough. But
Yeah,
Apple's technology inside of those would be phenomenal. I'm not going to get it, right? So the best I can hope for is that we get the Shocks. And they've talked about they're going to put cameras in them so that you can use AI a little differently and those kinds of things. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So I think my most likely wish list, which probably still won't happen, would be black or dark gray from a
yeah,
color standpoint. And then, like I said, I would love the on ear just resting on my earlobes form factor versus everything has to go in my ears or be these big giant cans that I have. I think they do
yeah,
some of that with Beats. I just I haven't got back into the Beats. I had a couple of pair of Beats headphones. They were fine. My son loves
yeah,
them, but it's just not my thing.
yeah. So you had sent a pair, and I bought them immediately. You sent me one of those deals. It was a pair of those Studio Beats. Got them
Mhm.
for Wendy, and she is over them. She's over the quality of them. She's over the battery life, the comfort as she's working out and stuff like that. So they were good at the time, but she's over them. As far as what I'm looking forward to, I didn't think about it, but I could use a good pair of black ones. I would switch over if they came out with some black or some dark gray ones. As far as internally, if they stay the same form pack, um, same battery life, all of that. I don't think there's any more quality and things like that that I'm looking for that I would upgrade this year, right? I would just skip this next generation, things like that. The Maxes, nothing they can do to those things would make me want to buy them. So you mentioned the shocks. So for anyone who's not familiar, I used to call them your skull rattlers, whatever you would tell me about them, but they use a different type of technology, right? They're called they use
Bone
some kind of
conduction.
bone
Yeah, so
conduction. Yeah.
it used to be bone conduction because they would sit right here on your temples and they still have those.
Right.
But their newest versions are kind of like those Beats Studios, but the instead of the buds going in your ear, they just rest
Right.
right outside your ear. So
Okay.
they still sound phenomenal. They always have. Yeah, they've got some really, really cool technologies. It's SHOKZ for
Hmm.
anybody that wants to look those up. Highly recommend them. Any of their products have been really, really good. A lot of marathoners, like ultra athletes that do long, long, long stuff, use Shokz. They've got some partnerships with some of those kinds of folks because they're not in your ears, even with transparency mode, right? They're not plugging anything. They're just sitting there. So a lot of endurance athletes use them. I love them. They actually sound better than you think they would, especially these latest gen ones. So yeah, love them.
Yeah, yeah, and that's high praise coming from someone with every version of AirPods,
Yep.
and is locked into the Apple ecosystem, yet you still use those shocks. So
Yep.
yeah, yeah, good deal. But yeah, outside of that, I can't think of anything that I'm really looking forward to. I probably wouldn't upgrade anyway. I'm like you, I still have my Pro 2s, even though only my right bud works. My daughter borrowed them to go to their field trip to the rodeo a couple of weeks ago. And she's like, "Oh, can I borrow?" She wanted her mom's Beats, but I'm like, "Hey, I have a you just pop it in your ears, just one." So we synced them to her phone, and she used it on the bus ride to the rodeo. But yeah, I probably wouldn't upgrade this year unless there's something that's just amazing about them that I need, or like you said, a good black version too
Yeah.
would uh would go. So
And I know we're big on using skins and stuff like that, and you can put skins on these, but it is
yeah,
so hard to get those right because the devices are so small and it's multiple pieces, and you've got all the cutouts, and you're still going to have some white that comes through. So I just have never even bothered to
yeah,
try it. I just want them. I actually would love a pair of matte or a pair of shiny black, right? Either way,
right,
but matte black, I think might be, you know,
yeah,
the best
yeah.
for
I
me.
think that's where I am too. Some matte black ones would definitely be a buy for me.
Yep. Well, Jason, I think we've done it. We had some technical hiccups along the way. Hopefully, nobody really notices a bunch of that, but we had some issues. But I think we've got both the Apple Watch done and AirPods. So, any
Yeah.
parting words, anything else you want to share with the audience?
No, guys, just share your opinions with us. Get in those comments and the comment sections, and let us know what you think. Let us know anything that we miss. If you think we forgot to mention any feature that you think would be a good selling point or a good way to convince somebody or help them make an decision, just put it down in the comments. Let us know.
Yep. All right. Well, we thank everybody for making it through with us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe, like, share, turn on notifications, whether you're on YouTube with us or whether you're on your favorite podcast feed. We really appreciate it. We've got one more of these launch episodes that we're going to do. We'll kind of cover the rest of Apple stuff. HomePods, CarPlay, which I've been using a ton of lately. I have both wired and wireless versions that I'm able to use. And then some of their services. We might not dive into Apple Care as one of their big services because I think that's probably an episode in and of itself, but we
Yeah, it
might
needs
touch
its
on it
own.
lightly. So if you're looking forward to that, that'll be out. We'll probably record that in another week or so. But yeah, thanks for joining us. Go back to our other episodes, iPhone, Mac, iPad. Other than that, from this grandpa, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.